So you remember back in May of last year, those of you that have been with me that long, my conspiracy theory about China and Taiwan and Russia. Well, in case you forget, this is what it was.
I think that China is using Taiwan and the US to build its military, but their goal isn't a reunification of Taiwan and China. Their goal is to build up a military in order to fly under Russia's radar. If they continue to meet with Russia and be friendly with Putin, between Xi Jinping and Putin, while saber rattling with the United States and saber rattling Taiwan, they can build up their military saying, yes, we are united with you, Russia, against the collective West. But in reality, China is building its military to potentially take advantage of a fractured Russia. Now, why is this? I believe that Russia has more of what China needs going into the future than Taiwan. There are three things that China needs more than what Taiwan offers. The first is energy. The second is water. And the third is food. Russia provides all of that.
Now, do you remember a couple of days ago how Putin rewrote the history of Russia and Ukraine during his interview with Tucker Carlson? Well, this seems to have reignited territorial claims within China among some Chinese nationalists, particularly regarding the port city of Vladivostok. On Weibo, which is a platform similar to X in China, many nationalists have dug into Putin's detailed discussion on Russia's historical claim to Ukraine and then linked it to China's own historical claims to what is now Russian territory. Now, during the interview with Tucker Carlson, Putin defended the Kremlin's actions in Ukraine as a civil war, which has inadvertently fueled demands from a faction of Chinese nationalists for the return of Vladivostok, a city acquired by Tsarist Russia in 1860 through the Treaty of Peking. Now, this treaty established the border along the Amur and Ussuri rivers, granting Russia control over a pretty crucial Far Eastern port. However, this was during the Chinese Century of Humiliation, and China is currently in the process of trying to rectify everything that came about during that time period. Now, for those of you that don't know, Vladivostok is right here. If you look, the border of Russia and China takes a very strange turn southward, basically granting Russia all of this territory along the coastline here. China lost all of this in that treaty back in 1860. So there is a movement within China, and more specifically the CCP, that has been gaining some momentum. They're advocating for the return of this territory, including Vladivostok, encouraged by Putin's comments that highlighted Russia's historical roots dating back to the 9th century and portraying Ukraine as a 20th century creation. Many Chinese are citing historical grievances over territory lost to Russia over a century ago because they have claims that date back even further. Now, despite being banned in China, citizens have also taken to X via their VPNs and expressed their desire to have Vladivostok returned to China. And if you're asking, Vladivostok is actually made up mostly of Russians, but this is because the Chinese and the Koreans were deported during the Soviet era, likely to avoid something like this taking place. But that generally doesn't concern Russia, as they claim Ukraine isn't a separate people, so why should China recognize Russia as a separate people? Now, the discussions extend beyond Vladivostok, with nationalists pointing out that territories currently within Russia and Mongolia were once under Chinese control during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century. However, there is a separate faction of Chinese experts that are skeptical of Putin's historical claims, saying they were mostly incorrect. Interestingly, Zishen Wang, who is affiliated with the Chinese Center for China and Globalization and a former journalist for Chinese state media, critiqued Putin and the emphasis on historical claims over contemporary legal standards, questioning the relevance of historical ownership dating back centuries. So within China, you have one group saying, well, if Putin believes in ancient claims, then why can't China? And another Chinese group saying Putin's claims are not valid because of current legal standards. Meanwhile, either one is fine with me because it poses a problem for Putin. Now, obviously, invading Russia, which is a nuclear power, is not likely for China, but it may make China less inclined to help a failing Russia unless there are some significant concessions that Russia makes for China. Meanwhile, the former president of Mongolia has entered the chat asking to speak to the manager of historical claims because clearly the Mongolian Empire got screwed out of some territory here.